I don't know if anyone's here yet, but we are live. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Live here for the patrons. Daniel, as you can see in the video, is here with me. Daniel Negreanu. I'll do a proper intro when we start the actual podcast here. But yeah, thanks for joining. Very exciting. I guess probably these live streams for Keeping Karlsson have a bit fewer people watching than the ones you do. But so that's good. You could just like say whatever you want. We don't have that many.
It's
Just
2023. You got to be careful what you say. Everything gets out, right?
yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyways, I'm stoked. Like, I guess we can just start the show. So let me just start at my actual like recording my audio and recording the Zoom and everything. And we can just get into it. Okay, so recording here, record this computer. All right, so yeah, I guess I'll just go. We'll start the show. We'll go as long as we could go, and then just let me know, obviously, if you want to like retake something. I like keep track of all the edit points as I go. So, but you're a pro.
Okay.
But anyway, okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Yeah! Yes! Welcome everybody to another episode of the Keeping Karlsson Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the longest running fantasy hockey podcast in the world, hosted by a guy who has never won a poker tournament, but is a multi-time Tim's NHL Challenge winner. So I'm basically on the same level as my guest. Because Daniel, have you ever won a week of free coffees from Tim Hortons? I don't think so. I'm your host, Neil Dubrowski. We've got a special show for you today. I'm joined by a living legend, Poker Hall of Famer, and most notably to me, the star of 2007's hit show Robin Amber Against the Odds. It's real kid poker himself, Daniel Negreanu. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
See, I've been introed a lot in the last couple of years, and the Rob and Amber reality show, that's a rarity. So you found a gem in that amazing season that was.
Honestly, I was obsessed with them at the time. That was my introduction to Daniel Negreanu. And then after that, I watched a little poker on TV here and there. But yeah, that was like, wow. I mean, if you're the one chosen to teach Boston Rob how to win at poker, then you
Well,
must be
Rob's
good.
been playing a lot. I was just in the Bahamas for a couple of weeks, and I was at a feature table with Rob. He's come a long way. He's
Wow.
playing a lot of poker these days, and he's a great guy. He's always, he's cooler than you could imagine just from the show alone.
I mean, obviously, being able to do a podcast with you is already super exciting. But now I'm starting to already think like, now can I get an intro to Boston Rob? But okay, I'll try to stay grounded here. And we got a lot to talk about. Of course, you're famous for your poker credentials. You're a prolific YouTuber, podcaster, but of course, I'm excited to have you on because you're also a longtime fantasy hockey player. We actually had you on the show a long time ago. I remember you were talking about this league you're in, this crazy dynasty league, like you're drafting players when they're like 14 years old. Are you still in that league?
So this is a league. I see. Listen, I've been in fantasy sports before it was cool, specifically hockey. We created the Alternative Hockey League in 1996, and it's 20 owners of 20 teams, and it's been almost no turnaround. We've had nobody drop out in the last decade, so it's almost the same 20 guys over 20
That's
years.
amazing.
I promise you, poker aside, anything like that, nothing gets me more excited than entering my lineups each day for this thing and making trades and stuff. It's the most fun thing that I do is my fantasy hockey.
And like, so if I recall correctly, like you guys are drafting players like before they've even been drafted by NHL teams. So like, do you have anyone who you've like got on your team that, you've had your eye on like forever since they were like a child?
So we ended up changing the rules. Okay. It used to be where you could draft anyone. So I remember looking at a guy named Jace Howerlook, who was playing in Brantford and he was breaking Gretzky's records over there. And so, like, he was nine. He's 9 years old. He ended up getting drafted by the Philadelphia Flyers, 32nd overall. Played a couple seasons here and there. He's 25 now. But I fast forward, I did ended up drafting him when he was 18. And we ended up partying here in Vegas when he came out.
That's
But we
awesome.
don't do that anymore because what we found was we want the worst teams to have access to the top picks. But guys like Malkin and Crosby or whoever, they were getting drafted at 16, 15, Tavares at 14. So we changed the rules now. So that number one pick now means that, you get Connor Bedard.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. That's how most dynasty leagues work. I thought this one was especially interesting. I that name sounded familiar, Jace Howard. Look, I just looked him up on a Hockey DB here. Oh, he played for the Sens for 11
Briefly.
games. I'm seeing.
Yeah, briefly.
That's exciting. So another
I
thing,
never felt like he got a fair shake. I mean, whenever I'd
yeah.
watch a shift, because, he became a buddy, I'm like, he's playing great. What are they not seeing? I don't know. But I guess he didn't have the chops.
Hey, he's got 9 points in 17 games in the Czech league right now this season. So that's
Doesn't
that's
seem like he's going to hit my radar, unfortunately.
of course, the other thing I know about you is diehard Golden Knights fan. How was that last year going to the Cup? That must have been so exciting.
It feels unfair, right? I'm from Toronto. I grew up in Toronto, and the people in Toronto, like, live and die by hockey, and they haven't won since 1967. Vegas comes into the league. First year makes the finals, makes the playoffs every year. We missed one playoff, and then it's like, oh, don't worry, we're just going to win the cup. So you feel a little bit spoiled. But I remember the atmosphere was amazing because the way that the game worked, if you guys remember the finals last year, game was over by the third. So everybody it was just a party. The third period, like nobody was, it was like, oh, score another one. It was just, it was a blast. And it's amazing to see, really shocking for me that, after that long playoff run, they started the season as well as they have. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think Vegas has a really good shot again this year. I just recently grabbed Barbashev out of free agency in my Cupful division. He's looking like a hold to me. He's looking really good. I should spend the whole show like asking you your opinions on Vegas players. Looking at Barbashev, Brian and I had a debate around a month ago on the show about if William Karlsson is for real. So I want to put you on the spot right now. If you had to choose William Karlsson or Ivan Barbashev for the rest of the season, who do you think's better for fantasy?
Well, for a couple of reasons, I would go Barbashev, especially for Cupful players. His eligibility on the wings, with Karlsson
Right.
being just the center. Also, Karlsson in Vegas the very first year had 43 goals, and people are like, well, how'd that happen? It's because the style, it was run and gun style, and then his numbers have gone down every year. Started this season hot, but Barbashev gets to be a third wheel often with maybe Stone and Eichel. So there's a lot of great exposure for him there, and he for peripherals and things like that, I think he might contribute a little more than Karlsson. So I would go with Barbashev given the choice.
Yeah, I mean, Eichel and Stone are just so red hot right now. I think Stone's a little underrated. Like he went pretty far in like a lot of drafts this year. I think a lot of it was like injury concerns, but he's been playing, getting points every game. And now that he's linked up with Eichel, like this is a great line. Yeah, if Barbashev can be there, that's obviously really exciting.
For
Of
the
course, one.
Stone thing, just on Stone, like he has a very, he had that back surgery, and that's a very significant thing for a guy
Mhm.
who, when you think of Mark Stone's pedigree, he was a sixth round pick when he was drafted. Number one reason was he can't skate, or at least that was the perception, right? So he's already, when you think you have a back problem, like that's going to slow him even more. But he's so smart and so adept defensively and things like that he still finds a way. So yeah, he ended up being a real sort of steal. But with him, it's very unlikely he plays the rest of the season without missing some time. Very unlikely.
Right. Yeah. So hopefully at least it's just like, fits and starts every now and then, missing a game or two, nothing serious. One other thing just about that cup run is another thing that you're saying that Leafs fans might be jealous of you is the Leafs had Phil Kessel for all those years. He couldn't help them get anywhere. Then he went to Pittsburgh, won a cup with them. I remember from the time you came on the show, like, yeah, two times. Yeah, of course. And then I remember when you came on the show, you were talking about Kessel. If I recall, you're like friends with him. He won the cup with Vegas as well. That must have been cool to have your friend of yours on the team winning the cup. I'm curious to know, have you talked to him recently? I'm curious to know if he's going to play another NHL game.
Yes, I have talked to Phil Kessel a lot recently. He asked me about poker hands all the time. But I felt it was sort of bittersweet with Kessel because he started off in the first series against Winnipeg and he played 4 games. He had 2 assists from the third line, looked like he was playing okay. Then they were completely healthy. I mean, completely healthy. Vegas ran really hot in terms of injuries. And then he didn't play another game. So he didn't really
Right.
actually get a chance to be a part of it. He isn't exactly a Bruce Cassidy style player. As for him playing hockey, he's ready. Like he's working out every day. Like he's looking. I mean, it doesn't look great at this point, but you never know. Like at the deadline, if a team decides like we want somebody with some pedigree, we need some depth scoring. A guy who's been there. He's won 3 cups. He's a good locker room guy. Like people really enjoy being around him. He's funny. He's funny, not on purpose. He's just
Okay.
got that sort of natural. He's just a fun guy to be around.
I mean, he had 36 points last year. Like that's
That's
more
the
than a
thing.
lot of.
Well, this is the thing with Kessel. He had 36 points, but get this, no power play time, virtually none. In addition to that, he's playing on the third line, right? So he's not getting it, and he's playing way less minutes than he normally played. So when you factor all that in offensively, he was an asset in the role that he played. I guess, for Bruce Cassidy, he doesn't play he doesn't hit. One of the reasons that Phil Kessel, is the Iron Man in hockey is because he doesn't hit. He doesn't get any hits. He stays away from body contact, which is why he can play for so long. But again, that doesn't jive with the way Bruce Cassidy wants his team to play.
Yeah, that's fair. And I guess you can't really blame Cassidy considering the results. But it'll be fun to see if Kessel gets signed somewhere. But yeah, we mentioned the couple. So you joined the couple this year. It was really exciting. Our coordinator Kevin A. Bear is a big fan of yours. He's the one who reached out right away. It was like, the day that you dropped a video where like he saw the Cupful logo like on your computer, like I guess you were like had your team open or something. He was like, the Cupful just got a look on Daniel's video. So it's pretty cool. So how's it going? You're in tier 8 knee guards. Looks like you drafted Tage Thompson in the first round, just like I did, which has been a little frustrating, but maybe he'll start to turn things around soon. I'm excited about that right wing eligibility. But how are you enjoying your keeping Karlsson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League debut?
Well, I'm loving it, right? It's very different than the league that I'm in, the Dynasty League, which essentially just tracks goals and assists. So there are peripherals in this league. And there's also some really cool wrinkles that I really enjoy about the Cupful. Like the idea that you only get 4 moves per week
Mm,
really like creates a lot of intense strategy in terms of how you play it, right? I've used my 4 each week since the start of the season. I think this week I may not, but it's such a big edge if you start off hot and you have like a 30, 40 point lead where you can start to look at next week's schedule,
right.
use your picks there and you can really ramp up. I think actually this next week, I'm not going to use my last 2 because the guys that I would drop like Pareko and like Philip Deneau, they fill holes for next week, which I think is a really, it's an interesting way of looking at things. I'm really enjoying it. It's a competitive league. There's a guy in our division, Phildo Baggins. I think he's 10-0.
Oh gosh.
So yeah, I mean that's pretty low,
Incredible.
obviously. But no, it's been a lot of fun, and I had some things to get used to. First and foremost, I didn't know that a guy who was day to day you could put on the IR.
Oh,
Oh, well, that kind of helps. That opens up some new spots for me. And the one thing I would say, I don't know if there's a capability in the software. I would make one small change to the Sunday night drama of like having to stay up to like for
yes.
East Coast to 3 a.m. And then like it's basically like first one to fingers gets the player. I would suggest if this is possible to do like Sunday from midnight to 9 a.m. is a waiver period. So any players that you want, you have 9 hours to pick them, and then you use your fab to get those players. So it doesn't give an advantage to those people that set their alarm for 2:59 a.m.
No, for sure. I agree with you. If that existed, like we would definitely use that because like we used to actually have the Cupful on waivers every day. Like the only way to add players was on waivers like that morning. But it was like adding a lot. Like there's a lot of like there's positives because like I say it's fair. You don't have to like race to it. You could just set your waiver claims and then hope for the best. But like there was some problems just in terms of imagine like you want to stream in a goalie, but you don't know the starting goalies yet. So you kind of just have to guess the night before. That's frustrating. Or if you have an injury during the day and you can't like pick someone else up to like replace that person. Also, I found, at least for me, like if I knew like I need to add a guy, right? So then, and I have an open spot or I'm going to drop this player. And then I would like, put in a claim for someone, but like, what if I get outbid on that person? So I need a backup, plan. I need a backup claim. And I end up like spending, have 10 backup claims in, then I'm like ordering them and trying to figure out my priority order. And I'd spend like, an hour each night. So at least now,
Yeah, that's
just
why I would suggest only doing it
on the
literally
one day.
because there's only one day that it's super important because you're planning for your entire week with all of your streams, which is another fun thing about the Cupful is essentially every team, you're gonna draft your team, and then the bottom like 4 or 5 guys you draft, a lot of them are going to be interchangeable and they should be dropped. And if you don't drop them, you're probably not as active as you should be. So I think just that one specific period on that Monday at midnight, leaving the 9 hours of sort of peacetime where people can all make their waiver bids and then let it play out as it plays out.
I like it. No, if Yahoo had that, I would love that for sure. Fantrax has at least something where I don't know if this works as well for like when you've used up your moves for the week and you have to wait for the next week, but I at least like it that because on Yahoo you can't even drop a player if they're in your lineup for a day, until the next day. So you still even have the 3 a.m. thing like during the week. If I added Romanov, this week I added Romanov for like a Tuesday, Wednesday stream, and then I wanted to add someone else on Thursday. So it's like I couldn't like, Wednesday night make that ad. I had to wait. And again, if I wanted to get my Thursday guy at like 3 a.m., if I to make sure I get him. But like on Fantrax, you could actually make that move early and it just only takes account like the next day.
That was actually what I was going to say is the other suggestion is if you could just put your plays in before you go to bed for the next day rather than have to get up. But
Yeah.
if the software doesn't have the capability, it doesn't have it.
But yeah, I mean, that's what separates the hardcore players. I guess if you're willing to, I guess set an alarm for 3 a.m., make your move, and then go back to bed.
Yeah,
At
my
least you're on
wife
the
is getting a little annoyed with me setting an alarm. Luckily, I'm on the West Coast, so
right.
it's like, I literally have in my alarm a preset for 11:58.
That's so
And then
funny.
she's like, and then I, of course, because I learned this from listening to one of your podcasts, got to do it on the laptop. Because if you have a
Yeah.
couple claims you want to make, you got to go boom, boom. And if you do it on your phone, you sit there and you wait, and then it's midnight, and you're like, but it's saying the day before, help. And then, you have the stress of somebody else getting the player you want, which not fun.
Yeah. Well, definitely the worst is when you like set an alarm for me 3 a.m. just to like get sniped because I didn't click it like a second fast. I'm like, well, Now I can't even go back to bed. I'm too angry. But
You asked me about Tage before we go there. You asked me about
yes,
Tage Thompson. So we had the 13th pick. I didn't want really Tage Thompson, and the other option was Brady Tkachuk, which seems like the better play. But I was so high on Stutzel that I didn't really want to have Tkachuk and Stutzel, and I figured I would get
I
Stutzel
gotcha.
on the rebound. So what I ended up doing was I went all in on Buffalo to start. I had Thompson, Cousins, and Power. I've since dumped Power and Cousins. He's on his last legs with me. I'm not very happy with what's going on there. But I
For
do think
sure.
with Jack Quinn back and a little bit more force up front, that's going to give him an opportunity to, because but what, Buffalo scored 9 goals the other night and he got nothing, a goose egg.
The worst. Yeah, like Buffalo is a straight team. I mean, Thompson at least had a good game, so that was nice to see. But yeah, Buffalo's losing right now 2-1 to the Rangers, and yeah, with people healthy, it's fun looking at the lines here. We've got back to the classic, Thompson, Tuck, and Skinner, and then Cousins is playing with Paterka and Quinn.
That's a better
So
line.
it
Well, see,
should be
that's a lot
good.
better than he was. The second line was a mess, and that's going to give him a little bit more opportunity, I would hope.
Yeah, I guess it'll come down to, like you said, also like if he could fit into games for you next week, like that Wednesday to start. Yeah, so today's Saturday that we're recording this. No hockey until next Wednesday. The next Wednesday is a really busy day, so we'll all have a lot of time to sort of think
Next week's
about what our
schedule
moves should
is
be.
weird. I think next year's schedule is crazy weird. If you look at all the teams, no teams have 2 light days. Like there's only like 5 teams that have like 6 teams that have like a light day, and you know, they're all every team plays like 3 games with the exception of Vancouver, who plays once. That's why I'm going to keep Pareko because I have Philip Hronik, which was one of my pickups, and he's only playing once, so I'm keeping him. So next week's schedule for like funds for like people who love to stream, it's not that fun. It's not as fun next week.
Yeah, well, I guess you could, and you're not going to use your moves this week to even start it. So yeah, I guess at some point it is nice a little bit, I think, to be able to depend on your team and not have to feel like you're behind the 8 ball because you're not like streaming perfectly. But I guess there's pros and cons there. It's so funny that you like to stream so much because I guess we had a question from Kevin asking, is Daniel using any strategy or mind games with fantasy hockey opponents? Kind of like with all of your experience playing poker. I guess like streaming is sort of like you're like trying to think about, oh, if this person, because I feel like a lot of it is like I have the player that I think is the best player to add, but also like maybe if the person doesn't play till Friday and today's Wednesday, maybe I could wait till like Thursday. But if I wait, then someone else might take that guy. So I imagine there's some similar psychology there.
I mean, psychology, but also like one of the things I look at is how many roster moves my opponent makes, right? So if you
Hmm.
see somebody that's low, so this is like basically using data and a read, right? So this guy is not using his ads. And then you see somebody else who's used almost all their ads. And you can be sure if they have 2 left, they're going to use their last 2. So then you want to think about preemptively, like who are they going to likely, target? And then if you can, maybe, you pluck them before they can do so. So I enjoy the streaming aspect. And I think like, schedule wise, it's part of the reason why I was so high on Mason McTavish. I drafted him higher than he was his ADP by a significant amount because I feel like Anaheim always plays a lot of the off night games, and you'll get him into more games than you will with somebody like on Tampa Bay, for example, who just plays on busy nights for the most part.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And that was like a reason also why I drafted Troy Terry. Things were going a lot better for McTavish than Troy Terry. I ended up trading Terry because he was just driving me too crazy. But McTavish actually is back in the lineup. He was missing for a while, but he's back in action. I think he already played the last game, and now he's playing today against Calgary. So far, I guess it's 0-0. So we'll see what's going on with the Ducks. But yeah, the Ducks are like a whole revamped team. If I could just get into, like, I want to ask you about your couple team, but also, I guess let's just get into like some headlines here and talk
Sure.
through it. But yeah, on Anaheim, so McTavish is back, Zegras is back, Drysdale's back, but now
Drysdale's
Leo
another
Carl.
big one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Drysdale's another big one who's going to slot in, I think, back in Power Play 1. It's going to hurt Mintikov's stock, I would think. But like the thing with Jamie Drysdale is he's really never been able to stay healthy. He's been pretty unlucky in his career
right.
so far. So he hasn't had a stretch. And as you see, when players come back from injury, like I had Aaron Ekblad, I drafted him and I said, okay, we can wait on him. But you still got to wait on him. Even when he's back, you don't look at the first 2 weeks and say, well, he sucks now. Well, give him some time. It really is a thing where, when players come back from injuries, don't expect them to, just light the lamp on fire. You have to give them some time.
Yeah, except the notable exception recently is freaking Patrick Kane.
He wasn't hurt though, right? But yeah, it's amazing. I just saw he scored again, like he's got almost as many goals as Ovechkin already or something like that.
Yeah,
It's pretty remarkable. Yeah. Of what, the fit he's been in Detroit.
yeah. Kane is making me and like the other like hosts on our network look kind of bad because we were all like, well, like the last player to
Everyone's
Yeah, I was like, oh,
Everyone said, do not, everyone on your entire channel, whether it's, all the guys, short shifts, you guys said, do not draft Patrick Kane. It's a huge mistake. And yeah, you're eating crow on that, but it's going to happen.
yeah, for sure. I mean, it maybe would have been worth just like grabbing him, even though he was like not IR eligible, and just holding it because now he's playing like superstar Patrick Kane. It's incredible. And now, with Larkin back, he's playing with Larkin and DeBrincat on the top line. It's like such a great trio if they stick. So it seems like he's doing fine. I'm sure Nicholas Backstrom is wondering, like, I wish I could have gotten that doctor. I don't know if they had the same doctor or not, but
I
I
will
don't
say,
know.
like, I was on board. There was no way I was drafting Patrick Kane. Aside from your guys' advice, like I was in the same boat. I didn't think it was a good play.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So we don't have to eat too much. Well, whatever. I like to be accountable. We're not gonna be right all the
Sure.
time. We're
Right.
giving our takes here. But yeah. Okay. Back to Anaheim. I'll just give the update here. So those guys are back, but William Karlsson, or sorry, Leo Karlsson, I should say, is injured. I got William Karlsson on the mind. Also, Radko Gudas is injured. So it's like going to be a whole new Ducks team now for a little bit. Top line today is Terry, Killorn, and Zegras. So it'll be really fun to see how they
They
work
really
out.
haven't been the top line. They are the top line, but they haven't produced like the, McTavish, Vetrano, second line.
Right.
They've been really consistent, really good. And Vetrano sort of came out of nowhere, to be a real producer. So they're kind of interchangeable right now. It's like 1 and 1A.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah, because like that line of like it was McTavish, Vetrano, and Strome, and they were the top line. They were crushing it for the early part of the season before McTavish got injured. And like since then, maybe even a little bit before, like Vetrano's gone really cold. Like Ryan Strome was like completely not doing anything. I think he's been dropped in all my leagues. But yeah, who knows now with McTavish back if maybe that line can get going again. So it's definitely gonna be
McTavish
something to
is a
watch.
man. That is a man. Like he came in as an 18-year-old and he looked like he was 26. Like I was very, very high on Mason McTavish going in, partly because I said because of schedule, but also because, the pedigree. He's a third overall pick, and I think he's like NHL ready and he peripherals, all the things. Yeah.
Yeah, and Anaheim's been kind of good lately. It's kind of a bummer that Leo Carlson got injured. It would have been fun to see this team like fully healthy and see how those lines would have shaken out and the power plays and everything. But we'll see how
Well,
they do.
he's a tough one because what, Anaheim decided, this might actually be a very smart play to sort of manage his schedule,
Mm.
where he's playing. They tell him when he's playing, he doesn't get to play every game. They don't want to overdo it with a rookie. It's probably a fundamentally very smart move for Anaheim. Not great for fantasy owners because now you're literally streaming this guy and hoping that, you get him when he's playing. You never know because they don't tell us, right?
Yeah. Do you think Yahoo should make it that a player who's healthy scratched like that goes day to day? I guess probably not, but that would be so convenient if you could at least stash him in your IR when he's not
Yeah,
playing.
that would be pushing. Yeah, yeah, that would be convenient. What we do in our league, by the way, because our league's a little different than yours, is we created during COVID or whatever, because there was a whole bunch of players in and out of the lineup. We didn't know who
Mm.
was playing. We created what we call a taxi order. So we have our full lineup, and then if one of our players does not play, our taxi order, the next up, we do it manually. We manually enter whichever player was next on your taxi order, and he gets into the lineup.
So do you like run this league on a platform or is it all just done on spreadsheets or something?
We run this league on literally it's alternativehockeyleague.com. And there we got the standings. We have within our league, I created some fun stuff. I created a Champions League within our league. I created a Survivor Tuesday, by the way. Every Tuesday night, the lowest scoring team is eliminated until there was only one standing. Whoever had the highest score gets immunity the next week. I also
Oh, I love
created,
that.
and then I created, because I'm too much of a nerd, I created Survivor Saturdays. And Survivor Saturdays starts with the 4 division as tribes. The lowest scoring tribe, as we tried it with voting one year, but it created way too many like issues. Like people really got upset. So we're like, all right, we'll do without the voting. If you're the lowest scoring on your tribe, you're out. If you're highest, you get idols and you can play your idols when you want. So I think it's fun for a league to have these little sidebar things, especially throughout the regular seasons. And I create a whole bunch of fun stuff in addition.
Oh man, that sounds so much fun. Like, so we have a playoff pool that we do every year, and the way we do it is kind of similar to that in that, everyone joins, and then we have a whole bunch of like separate leagues for the first round, and we only draft for one round, and then once the first round's over, it's like the top whatever 5 in each division like move on to the next round, and we do new drafts, and then until there's one winner. But I love this idea of like giving immunity to the team that like comes in first. Maybe they can't even be eliminated in the second round. I got to throw that around with the team and see if
I have
we.
an idea for yours. Since you guys have a really cool vibe with all the different divisions,
Mhm.
what if you took all the divisions, like every team in every division, and pit them against each other? So each week, like the lowest scoring division is eliminated.
Oh
Right.
damn.
So then, or like maybe there's probably even more than that. Like you could do that until there's one reigning division champion, or who knows? It's all sorts of fun stuff you can do. In addition, that doesn't actually. Well, the thing that was important for me was it doesn't require like the team owner to do anything else. Like you don't have
Right.
any extra work. It's just I do all the extra work and it's fun. And it's just this, because like I noticed you guys do the thing with, I'm on Team Brett, for
Yeah,
example. Like
yeah.
we play against a different, team each week. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's like we have it. All the people who drafted with the same draft position have like
Mhm.
their own private chat, and then they're competing as a group against someone else each week. But I do this elimination idea and immunity idea is going to be very excited. I just watched the Survivor finale from the past season yesterday, so I've got it definitely on my mind. Okay, let's go back to some hockey headlines here. I'm happy to bounce around though. Let's go back to Vegas actually, because I did want to talk to you about what's going on in net because it's a pretty wild situation. Aiden Hill has been placed on the IR. I guess who knows, right? Like maybe like with the holidays coming up, maybe like all of these injuries could just clear out in a couple days and it's not going to matter. But for now, anyways, Hill is out. Logan Thompson is day to day with an upper body injury. So today, for the second game in a row, Yuri Patera, who's not someone I'm especially familiar with, got the start. Took a loss against who was it here? Took a
Florida.
loss against Florida. Yeah, but I mean, he stopped 38. Like it was like 38 out
Well,
of 42. So,
in the first period, the shots were literally, it says 20-2, but it was actually one because one was a dump in. But it wasn't his fault that we lost. But, like you said, 37, 38 shots. But it is a problem right now. Like Patera is not an NHL caliber goalie. I wouldn't look to pick him up, if you were, considering he's not a long-term viable goalie, I don't think. Like, but yeah, you never know with Hill and Thompson being out. Like, if you have nobody else, maybe spot starts. Like, but Vegas, generally speaking, plays a good defensive structure. It's sort of fallen apart in the last probably week and a half or whatever. Like the numbers have been bad. They're allowing like 4 or 5 goals a game now for a little bit. But when they get their ducks in a row, and one of the goalies comes back, I would jump on whether Hill. Well, I imagine Hill and Thompson are probably still owned, so you're not going to get a chance to do anything about these injuries. There's nothing there.
right. Okay. Well, I was curious just because, I remember last year, I don't even think Hill was like on anyone's radar, right? They had Thompson going for a
Mine,
while. He was on
I
yours.
tweeted before the year started. I tweeted before the year started that Aiden Hill would end up being the starter. We got him
Wow.
for a round pick, and I said by Christmas. It was a little after Christmas, but then he ended up being the key cog in them winning the cup. And I really don't think they would have won the cup if Laurent Boisson didn't get hurt. Because going into the playoffs last year, they had him starting ahead of Hill, and when he went down after Logan Thompson was out, Hill was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and Hill's been great this year before getting hurt. Was looking really good. And him and Logan Thompson looked like so amazing last year when he had his run of being the starter. So yeah, I was wondering if maybe Patera could be the next one, but you're saying not. So okay, let's say worst case scenario, if Hill and Thompson are like out, is there anyone like I saw there was this guy named Isaiah, what is it here?
Jay
Isaiah
Seville.
Seville. Is he anything?
He's probably like so. Patera. Someone asked me this earlier today. Funny about the goalies, and Patera isn't somebody that has a high pedigree exactly, but Seville sort of does. He's kind of a higher value prospect. But I don't see with Vegas and the way that they do things. They typically don't look to start rookies or young players
Mm.
like that. So so I think it's like well, Patera's net until somebody comes back. But again, I wouldn't. I mean, I guess you could spot start because the thing with Vegas is there's a couple of teams in the division that are weak, like San Jose, Anaheim. So if you get exposure to playing against those teams, I would maybe spot start against weak teams, and you'll get the 3 points for the win, and likely low percentage shots from your opponents.
Okay, and I guess since we're on Vegas, I'll throw a cold streak at you. I wanted to get your take on what's going on with Alex Petrangelo. This is a guy who had 54 points in 73 games last year. So like a 60 plus point pace. Then like this year, like Shea Theodore gets injured. Like it was like even seemed like a better situation for Petrangelo. Like he's going to get all the power play time as opposed to having to split it. And yeah, he's been getting top power play game in, game out. But I'm looking now at like pointless in his last 5 games, including today, another goose egg versus Florida. He had 4 blocks, which is nice, 2 shots. But like, have you noticed anything just different about Petrangelo overall on the season? He has less than half point per game, so it's just been such a brutal year for him. I'm wondering, like, if you had him, like, is it time for people to consider dropping, or do you think this is just a typical buy low? Like, he's Alex Petrangelo. He's been great for so long, but I guess people fall off eventually. Just wasn't expecting this.
Yeah, somebody offered Petrangelo to me in a trade last week, and I said no, thank you. Not interested. A couple things. He's having to carry more of a load, and for a defenseman who plays that many minutes, in the deep cup run that he had, without Theodore being out, like you would assume, like, oh, well, that's good, right? Now he takes over all the offensive scenarios. But then you have Martinez being hurt and in and out of the lineup and stuff like that. So I think he's just, playing probably too many minutes, and he's a little bit older, like you said. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's any prognosis I have. I think when Theodore comes back, that's the thing, is I don't think like, oh, well, now he's better. No, I don't think so. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily buy low on Pietrangelo. I had an opportunity to last week and I didn't. But I think Theodore is the one guy on defense when healthy that I would expect to, be the guy that puts up points on the power play.
Right. Yeah. So are you thinking that so it's just kind of like you're saying he's carrying too much of a load, and so he has to maybe shoulder more like defensive
Yes.
responsibilities? Can I see? Okay.
Like
Uh,
defensive zone starts. He's not getting the offensive zone starts. He's getting more defensive zone starts.
right. So have you made any trades in Cupful this year? Actually?
In Cupful, no. Yeah, no, I haven't really. There's a couple that I, considered here and there, but again, because of the streaming situation and like compared to the league that I'm in, the quality of players that are available is like so amazing. Like,
Right.
in our league, none of those guys are available. But so that's been fun. I haven't really felt the need to make any trades. Like I didn't draft goalies, because again, they're voodoo, and I knew that going in. But I remember like late, I had Freddie Anderson and Phoenix Copley. And I've been able to parlay that into picking up Cam Talbot and Kochetkov, who I think is like amazing. So that's my goalie tandem now, and I plan on like not messing with that anymore. That feels as solid as you're going to get in goal right now is Talbot and Kochetkov.
Yeah, I also got Talbot actually out of free agency to start the year, and it's been incredible. And yeah, Kochetkov, I had him out there. I wish I took him. He was like having a cold stretch and things weren't going well, but now he's been on a really good run. And with Ronta sent to the minors,
Well,
uh,
last 5 games, he's posted he's 3-0-2 with a 950. So that's decent. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, again, you expect Carolina to get a lot of wins, and you expect them to play, they're really, really well defensively structured. So, a lot of the times when you see save percentages, it's based on quality of shot, right? And even though like he's not going to take as many shots, I think his save percentage is likely to be higher on a team that he faces less high danger opportunities.
I hope that you're not in like a really close matchup and you need every point, because actually, as you're saying this, I'm just looking it up, and Kochetkov is having a bad game today.
Oh, I'm
This
crushing
particular.
this week. I'm up. I was up like 50 points going into today. That's why I
Oh,
didn't.
sweet.
Yeah,
Okay, so you
we're
might get
fine.
a negative from Kochetkov, but it'll be fine. You'll be okay. Yeah, 3-1 for the Islanders over the Hurricanes. Believe it or not, man. Bo Horvat and Barzal, they're very good. But
Barzell was one of my late picks too.
oh, and
Barzell,
this year, oh, that's
Barzell
amusing.
and Dobson are two guys that I was a little bit high on because I'm like, well, the Islanders don't score much, but who's going to score? And I thought with Horvat being there, I thought the biggest benefactor was going to be specifically Matthew Barzell, and his ADP was very low. I was kind of a little bit surprised, and he's been great for me. Barzell has, and so has Dobson.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that a lot of people were surprised with Barzal. I mean, last year his numbers weren't really good, but he barely got to play with Horvat. As soon as they got Horvat, then Barzal got injured, and then Horvat like didn't look so good. Like, but he didn't have Barzal. Now both of them together are really clicking. And yeah, the Islanders are now a team that can score goals. Like it's kind of like a new thing we have to wrap our heads around here. But yeah, it's interesting with your goaltending. We'll see. I've said the same thing. I think I'm set in net. I have like Connor Ingram who seemed to take over in Arizona. Now all of a sudden, like Melka's on this crazy shutout streak.
I've
Ingram's.
always been high on Vimmelka, and I
Oh
did.
yeah,
So I picked him up exactly when Connor Ingram got like 4 straight starts. Like it was just bad timing, but
yeah,
no, I'm much happier now with what I've got. The thing, it's really interesting with the cupful, like in terms of how to utilize goalies, because there's a question of whether it makes sense to like have a third, or not. And when you compare it to like how many points, an average player is going to get for spot starts, that's something I'm still trying to wrap my head around in terms of what makes sense.
yeah. It's really we tried to hit that balance where like definitely a goalie start is worth more than a skater start on average by like a couple points. But of course, then you have the fact that your goalies won't play every game, and so you have to kind of figure out. But then of course, there's also if you have three, then it would suck if you have like three goalies that are all playing on the same day and you have to bench one. So yeah, I guess like you said, with if you could get like the Anaheim goal, well, too bad those goalies aren't worth anything. But yeah, if you could get goalies playing on off days, theoretically it could be good. But yeah, right now I'm rocking three: Talbot, Ingram, and Carter Hart. But yeah, I'm definitely open to swapping out Ingram at some point, depending on how things go. Though I should mention Carter Hart, since that was one of my headlines I wanted to bring up. He missed like a lot of time over the past couple of weeks with like illness. And usually, in fantasy, you see like someone's out with illness, like, oh, he'll miss a game, like whatever, he's sick, he has a cough. I don't know. But I don't know what it was. I don't know if he needs to be like not sharing his water bottle with his teammates, or I don't know what's going on with Carter Hart, but he's been sick a lot this year. He came back yesterday. First period was a disaster against Detroit, letting 5 goals. Then he had like -5 something, like a couple points for me. Like after the first period, I was like, what a disaster. I like dropped, someone to like make, room to bring in Carter Hart just to have him blow me up. But then he like settled in and was really good for the rest of the game. So I think a lot of people might be just looking at the ending result and seeing like 6 goals against him, like, oh, Carter Hart stunk. But just to throw it out there, like he was actually really good for 2 periods before letting in, a goal right at the end of the game. So just
You say a
throwing that out there.
-5, which sounds scary. I had Antti Ranta.
Oh no.
Well, hold on. He posted a 10. Luckily, I did not use him that game.
Oh, see.
But yeah, I
That
mean
was the
that's.
worst I'd ever seen.
I don't think you'll ever see much worse than a -10 with the scoring system as it is. That's
Yeah,
impressive.
it was like 8 goals against on 13 shots or
Something
something,
like
like
that. Yeah, it
really
was.
insane. And yeah, we used to have stricter like goalie categories. Like it was more of a penalty for a goal against, and then people were getting like negatives, and we ended up like tweaking it a little bit. And now it's like we're pretty forgiving. Like a goalie has to have a pretty bad game to get negative at all. Like this Carter Hart game, he let in 6 goals on 37 shots, and it was basically like 0 at the end. So like you'd have to be really bad to get negative. And yeah, and still Ronta dropped like a -10 on people, which is just like insane. I wonder if he's ever going to see the NHL again, because he was like looking fine like last year and for a lot of this season. But yeah, a couple of really brutal games
Yeah,
against
no,
him in the AHL.
I think he's a decent goalie, and I think he might stick somewhere else. But I wasn't surprised that he didn't get claimed on waivers or anything like that. But teams are always looking to shuffle goalies. As you talk about, and every one of your smorgasbords, goalies are voodoo. Like you
Hmm.
think this guy's the best goalie in the world, and now all of a sudden, he's the worst. Like the Jack Campbell sagas and the
Oh gosh, yeah.
and yeah. So yeah, goalies are very very difficult to predict.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's like Vasilevsky's good. I know that. Hellebuck seems very good. But like even
Sorokin's
going into
good,
this,
Shesterkin's good. Yeah.
but even like Shestyorkin like is not having a great season. Like Ottinger seemed like such a sure thing. He's not having a good year. So I don't know. Next year, it's more goalies board. I'm tempted to just be like, there's not even like a tier one, like start a tier two. I don't know,
Yeah.
like just to really emphasize, like you're taking a risk by spending a super high pick on a goalie because you never know when. And who knows? Like UC Saros was looking really not great for a lot of the season, but now he's like super hot. So probably was worth it. And like he's the kind of guy you would expect to be fine. I'm looking through our teams here. It's really funny also how you said that the couple is like you look in free agency of like all these amazing options. Cause I think for a lot of people, like we're considered a pretty deep league, like we have 18-person rosters and 14 teams per division. Like a lot of people that we answer questions from on our Discord or on Twitter or whatever, like 12 team leagues, 10 team leagues. But you're right, you could still get some gold. Like I'm seeing a player we have in common here is Dylan Strome, who's been doing great on Washington recently on a point streak. What is it? 6 game point streak. We'll see if he can keep that going. We're halfway through this game versus Tampa. Nothing yet. It's 1-1.
Yeah, he was a
Yeah,
streamer for me that I only planned to keep for, a week, maybe two, and then he just kept scoring. So, I have no plans on dropping him right now, although I don't know that there's a much higher ceiling. I feel like it would be a good sell high opportunity right now with him, just in terms of the, situation he's in with Ovechkin seeming to fall back to an earthly being or whatever you
right.
want to call him, just not pouring pucks in.
Yeah, well, I guess like the thing I've been thinking about Dylan Strome is like I wonder because he's taking a lot of shots recently, and that's never really been a thing that Dylan Strome does. And I almost wonder if it's like when Ovechkin is like cold, not able to convert as often. I wonder if like Strome is shooting more. Like I need to watch some Capitals games. I think to, like get the full situation of what's going on. But I think like as long as Strome is on the top line and top power play, playing with Ovechkin and like even taking some shots now and then, like he had a 6 shot game a little while back. He's generally been around 2, 3, 4 over these past couple of weeks. So I'm excited about Strom. We'll see how long he can be a hold. Also, for me, I traded Ovechkin, so I kind of like the idea now of having Strom. So if it turns out that I biffed it and I should have held Ovechkin, at least I'll get like these points from Strom
Yeah.
since like they're playing together. It's fun to have that. I did the same thing with traded Troy Terry, but then I picked up Alex Killorn out of free agency. So I'm hoping that like either way, I should be good. But we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, no, I've definitely done that where, you're like, you lost a guy and you're like, well, get the guys playing with him and then maybe you won't feel as bad. But yeah, I think again, I like, as you said, our league is so incredibly deep. We have 20 teams with 28 player rosters essentially, plus 20 farm. So you're
Wow.
talking over 1,000 players are owned. So when you're looking at the free agent, like, why you're looking at like, ooh, Andrew Peak. All right, that's my latest waiver claim, Andrew Peak, and I was like excited to get him.
Does your league count blocks? I think isn't that what
No,
it
we
says?
do goals are one and assists are a half, and then goals against are half. We're very simple. We don't,
Oh,
the week we were created in 1996, and it's a head-to-head league where we have a game every night. There's 6 or more hockey games. You ice your, top 6 forwards, 4 defensemen, and we use goaltending teams because again, goalies are voodoo, and rather than
mhm.
just have to guess who's going to start and do that work, like I have Carolina, LA, and Calgary goalies. So when they play, I eat whatever goals against that they allow.
Yeah, well, Carolina, I guess, letting you down a little bit this season, though. I guess, like you said,
LA's been
Kochetkov is
great.
looking good now. LA's been really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cam Talbot, I feel like just needs to be on a good team, and then he's good. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
He reminds me of Aiden Hill in a lot of ways in terms of just a simplistic style, which works well in a good defensive structure. Like that's why I was so high on Aiden Hill because I understood how Bruce Cassidy likes to play. And he plays a zone defense, which really protects goalies from like rebound goals, right? Well, the one downside of it is you're not chasing the puck, so it's harder to get the pucks out. So you're not, your time of possession is going to take a dip, but the quality of chances against you. And if you're a big goalie and you just stand your ground, that's a really good spot. That's a good situation for a goalie like Hill. And then Talbot right now is in a very good situation in LA.
Yeah, and plus Copley doesn't seem to be very good, so it's like not a lot of competition right now. Copley's injured, and Riddick came in, and he had a good game, if I recall. Actually, let me just bring up Riddick right now. I wonder if he could maybe because it's funny, like Talbot and Riddick were a tandem over in Calgary like a couple years ago, so I guess they're reunited, and we'll see if that goes. And I remember it was like Riddick was the starter for a lot of the year, but then like Talbot sort of overtook him. But yeah, one game so far for Riddick, only 1 goal against. I guess it was only 16 shots against the Sharks, but he got the win, 938 save percentage. So
The Sharks.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
as I was looking at it, I was like, well, I guess we shouldn't read too much into.
I remember watching the game and seeing the score. And I'm like, oh, sweet. Talbot's going to get a shutout. And they're like, oh, no, it's Riddick.
Yeah.
Oops.
So you were talking about Vejmelka before and how you were into him. I have him in my dynasty actually. I hope that this turnaround is for real. But like speaking of Arizona, I wanted to talk about the return finally. Another guy kind of like Carter Hart who was just out for so long and it was just like why? Like I don't know what's going on. But Sean Dursey came back for like a game. He took a hard hit. I forget against who, but anyways, like, and then he like missed a game or two, and then it was like he came back, but then he like didn't do so well, and then he missed another like 4 or 5 games. But Dursey finally came back for oh my gosh, again against the Sharks actually, a couple days ago. So maybe take this with a grain of salt, but a good game for Dursey when he came back. 2 assists, 4 shots. He played decent minutes, 22 minutes and 23 seconds. In that one game he played, like in between missing time, the first time he only played like 15 and a half minutes. So maybe that was a sign that he wasn't 100%. So we'll see. Jersey is going to play again today. Arizona is going up against, let me just bring this up here. I know they're playing. Oh, Arizona's against the Avalanche. Okay, so that'll be a tougher opponent. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, if Jersey's available in people's leagues, like he's the top, power play defenseman on a team with a pretty exciting power play right now. So needed to shoot him out there, and we'll see. Also, I'm interested to see what Ingram does tonight after like Vejmelka's been so good, and Ingram didn't do so well in his last game.
It's weird to call Arizona an exciting team, but I agree with you completely. Like they can actually score goals now, and Jersey's a big like boost to the power play, and he plays a pivotal role. So I agree. I would if he was available, I would grab him.
And also, like, this is a guy who, again, this will be probably for your dynasty league. You're like, this guy's long gone forever. But for most leagues, even in the couple, I think this guy's available. And we need to mention Alex Kerfoot, who isn't a big name, but, he was on the Leafs, whatever. He's been playing lately on the top line with Keller and Schmaltz, and also on the top power play with Keller, Schmaltz. In the last game, it was Keller, Schmaltz, Kerfoot, Michelli, and then Sean Dursey. And we like Michelli on this podcast. He's been good for his rookie season. He's doing good this year. But Kerfoot, the kind of out of nowhere, he had a bit of a slow start to the year, but he's got like 5 points in his last 3 games. Seems to be clicking on this line and on this power play. So, in a super deep league, or if you just want to stream someone for a good schedule, like Alex Kerfoot is doing stuff. But is he like long gone? I'm right in your dynasty? No chance?
Oh yeah, no, like again, basically anybody that young that was drafted in the first couple rounds is going to be on somebody's farm, so they're ineligible to be drafted. Like on my farm still in that league, I have Mason McTavish. Like he's not even on my team, but I get to use him, for a spring call up and for the playoffs. So we keep him
Nice.
down on the farm for now.
So who's at the top of your? Can you share who's at the top of your free agency list right now? Now that Andrew Peak is gone, do you have anyone you're eyeing? I'm just curious to
Well,
know
it's
how
funny
people are
because I
looking.
dropped Ben Hutton to pick up Andrew Peak. Right.
Oh, isn't
Yeah.
Houghton just got a new contract? So
He
I
did
guess
2-year extension, and he's a filler guy. He's not like he's actually got like I think 6 points this year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for a guy like him, he's really a seventh defenseman, when the team is fully healthy. But, you
Mhm.
always need utility guys. Like he was actually kind of retired or whatever. And we're like, hey, we need a defenseman. Do you want to play? He's like, sure. And, very simplistic style, Vegas style, defenseman that's reminiscent of like Derek England, if you will, to a certain degree. But I wouldn't expect much from any of those guys. But again, what's cool? Defensemen in my league, it's just goals and assists. But in the cupful, a lot of these defensemen that don't put up points still have value. If they're
Right.
getting hits and blocks and some shots here and there. So that's probably one of the interesting things I looked at. I'm like, wow, there's some defensemen taking the cupful that we don't even use, right? Because they
Uh,
don't score. But yeah, it's different.
yeah, for sure. Well, when you said Andrew Peak, I was like, hey, he's good. He gets like a ton of blocks. Why not? But then, yeah, as soon as you said the blocks aren't counted, then it's less exciting. Hey, Hutton had an assist today. Maybe you should consider adding him back. Or was he claimed?
As
Did someone
soon
use
as
all
I
their
got
fan?
rid of him, I think he had a goal and an assist in
Oh,
the game when I dropped him. But we'll see. Maybe we can pick him up next week.
that's how it always goes. Okay, next headline here. I'll throw at you. In Pittsburgh, Alex Nedeljkovic is getting his third straight start today. Not great. Like basically no Jari games today for people who have Jari on their teams. Luckily for the Jari managers, it looks like the Sens are finally making Nedeljkovic look a bit human. He's led now 4 goals on 21 shots. I'm seeing we're midway through the second period. It's 4-2 for Ottawa. So maybe Jari finally gets back in the net. I'm kind of thinking this could be, and I'm blowing up my spot here because I was thinking of making a trade off for Cupful. So now I guess everyone will, but I'm kind of thinking like maybe this is a good opportunity to buy Jari just because I'd be personally like surprised if he doesn't like take over as the starter. Maybe he takes the holidays, especially now if like Nedeljkovic has like a bad game here. Um, Again, of course, goalies like impossible to predict, but Jari is someone that was going relatively high in drafts compared to relative to other goalies. Seemed like he'd be a starter. So on one hand, it's like exciting for Nedeljkovic, but on the other hand, I wonder if it's a chance to trade for
Well,
Jari
so
and
yeah,
be
I was
pretty
going to say
cheap.
you were saying trade because you wouldn't be available anywhere, Jari,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. I was thinking like, was that okay? I'll just say because I don't think I'm going to do it at this point. Anyways, I already have 3 goalies, but I was thinking of offering Barbashev for Jari. I'm curious to know if that would have been accepted. But I see Barbashev got another point today. Like I'm not just going to hold Barbashev. I like him, but we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so let's take a break. And then when we come back, I've got some more hot streaks and cold streaks for you. Maybe you could just give a quick take of like, you think it's going to keep up? Or do you think like, the player is going to go back to what we normally expect? So we'll get to that in a sec. So how are you feeling in terms of like time? Like I'm good to
I'm
this is
all
like
good.
rolling. Brian, like this is not a diss on Brian, but like he has long, answers. So I never get through this many players in such a short amount of time. This is great.
Oh,
I get
I'm
to
just looking at
roll
some
through my whole
scores here.
schedule.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I'll start in Colorado here. Actually, let me just bring up some stats before I go. Oh yeah, there's a chat here going on. Who got? Anyways, okay. Middle stats still valuable. Less so, I guess, with everyone healthy. Okay. All right. So let me bring this up here. McKinnon. Yeah, I'm gonna look up. We had a question of. Oh yeah. So you can be prepared. We had a question in our Discord of McKinnon versus Draisaitl for the rest of the season. So I think that'll be a fun one to look into
Ooh,
because
wow.
McKinnon's just going insane lately. So okay, let me bring that up here. All right. All right, we're back with Daniel Negreanu. You haven't misheard. It's a very exciting time for me to be talking to this guy on the podcast. Thanks so much again for joining. And Daniel, we're going to play a game of a sustainable or fleeting, a classic keeping Karlsson game. And this one, it doesn't always have to be like players that are coming out of nowhere to do something or like a good player that's on a cold streak. Sometimes we could just talk about a player who we expect to be good, but it's like, are they really this good? And I want to start right at the top. Nathan MacKinnon on Colorado. Holy cow, what a run this guy's on. He just is coming off a game versus Ottawa where he had 4 goals and an assist. He had a 4-point game a couple games before that. McKinnon's now up to 33 points in his last 17 games, so almost 2 points per game. This is like McDavid levels. We had a question recently on our Discord from Chris S. that I thought would be interesting to look into. Wondering like if now would be a time to try to trade McKinnon for Draisaitl or like trying to predict McKinnon versus Draisaitl rest of the season because I think in Cupful for the most part Draisaitl was being drafted second overall in the majority of leagues. And then McKinnon or Matthews were third or fourth. But Draisaitl's actually like having a bit of a down year. Like if you look overall, 93-point pace, 33 points in 31 games, like far below McKinnon. He's coming off a game yesterday versus the Rangers, no points. what is this? No points from Draisaitl? What are you going to do? So, to me, it's like I just like ride the hot hand. Like I feel like the way McKinnon is looking, he's the guy that I would want. I think second after McDavid at this point.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't go McKinnon here over Draisaitl. As you said, like this season alone, like the numbers, would suggest that McKinnon, has performed much better. And I don't see any reason going forward why that would change. There's no like real red flags for me in terms of what he's been able to do. He's a driver, he's not being carried by anybody for sure. Draisaitl obviously top player, but I mean, McDavid plays a big role in terms of what he's able to do. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't go with the hot hand McKinnon. If I could make that trade, I would do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at McKinnon's like career stats, and his shooting percentage this year is like 12.1%, which isn't too far above what he's done before. So it's not even like he's getting this like crazy shooting luck. He's just freaking Nathan McKinnon. He's taking 4.5 shots per game, so you'd expect him to have a goal every, couple games, and he's getting a ton of assists. You're playing with Rantanen and Nichushkin. By the way, Nichushkin has been so insane. Like he's not on a streak like as great as McKinnon, but definitely if he could keep this up for the rest of the season, Nichushkin is going to be someone who's going to be drafted in like, I don't know, the third round of fantasy next year. Like he's up to now 32 points in 31 games, but like 11 in his last six. The big question, I think, with Nichushkin is he's been, playing with McKinnon and Rantanen, like such an amazing spot, also on the top power play. I see that Arturi Lehkonen has been skating. And before Lehkonen, got hurt, like Nichushkin was kind of not doing that well. He wasn't even on the top power play. He wasn't playing on the, it was Lehkonen in this spot. So I'm really interested to see what Colorado's going to do when Lehkonen comes back. There's only one spot to play with McKinnon and Rantanen. I guess they could split them up and try to spread the wealth. But yeah, I wonder if this is a moment where Nichushkin's going to go down, or they just have to probably roll with what's working.
I would not be worried about Lehkonen stealing Nichushkin's job, in this case. Like Lehkonen has always sort of been, a middle six type guy, depending on what the coach decides he wants to do, like you said, in terms of spreading the wealth. But, if it's working, I don't see any reason why, that would be a big concern. I think obviously with, Landeskog being gone, there isn't a lot of like threats to Nichushkin in that position. And while he's there, I wouldn't even consider getting rid of him.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I have Nichushkin in my couple team, but I also just recently grabbed Lehkonen. He was dropped. I guess someone had already 4 injuries, so but all of a sudden, like Lehkonen is skating. I'd be curious to know if he'll be back like pretty soon. And yeah, so it'll be fun to see. I mean, there's room for both of them on the top power play. I hope they could be the two of them, McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar. Wow, beautiful. Another like deep cut, kind of like similar to my Alex Kerfoot from before. I have to mention Jonathan Drouin is looking pretty good recently. 6 points in his last 5 games. This is a guy who was like seemed like he was like almost out of the league. Obviously, he picked a good spot to play here on Colorado, where he has history with Nathan McKinnon. And Drouin has been playing recently on the top power play with McKinnon, Rantanen, and Nichushkin. So obviously, I guess you would expect that could be Lehkonen's spot at some point, but Lehkonen might not be back for a while. So got to throw him out as someone to maybe stream in while he's on that top power play.
Yeah, so Jonathan Drouin is a funny one for me because there is one hockey player who doesn't say a lot of good things about a lot of players, but is very, very high on Jonathan Drouin and thinks he's got skills, and that's Phil Kessel. He always thought Drouin was a player. Yeah, he always was high on him, and he obviously has the raw talent and skills. And, if he puts it together and he gets a good situation, his ship hasn't sailed, obviously.
Yeah, and I think Drouin like had a really rough time with injuries. Like anytime it seemed like anytime he was finally getting going, he would have some like rough injury in Montreal and then it would fall apart. Then he ended up going to the player assistance program. So but I'd imagine it was all like connected, just like must be so frustrating like to just not be able to get going, then keep getting hurt. But yeah, he's only 28 years old. Right, on a hot streak now. So, definitely not something that should be sustainable all season, but I would give Drouin a try for sure. Drouin's former team, by the way, the Habs, they've got a couple guys running hot right now. And I guess we got to start with just, the captain here, Nick Suzuki. Is he the captain? I'm just assuming that actually. I just said that without knowing, but you'd expect that he'd be the captain anyway. But Suzuki is on a crazy run right now. He's on this line with Caulfield and Slavkovsky, and Suzuki's got 8 points in his last 5 games, coming off 2 straight 1 goal, 1 assist games. So he's someone obviously rostered in the majority of leagues. But there's always the question of like, maybe do I sell high right now? Like, is he doing like overperforming? So yeah, I mean, he's up to 30 points in 33 games, looking like potentially a breakout season for Suzuki if he could keep this up, 75-point pace.
Yeah, I have him pegged as a guy who's like career going to be like a 70-point player. I don't know if like 75 plus. I mean, 75 maybe like the ceiling. But what he's been doing of late, is that sustainable? Like 8 points in 5 games? No, I don't
Yeah.
see it. But again, it really depends on like the tools around him. And if Slavkovsky continues to develop, he's got Caulfield, who's quite a sniper. But yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, there's just so many great centers available, like typically, in this league. And I think like loading up on centers with a couple makes a lot of sense because the way in which it works seems to me like with those utility spots that you have, it's there's plenty of room to keep Suzuki on your squad. So, but if I got like a real good offer for him, like I would sell high.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, do you ever think about what could have been if the Golden Knights held on to Suzuki, or are you happy with
Certain
the?
degree, like I'll be honest, like the trade for Pacioretty, I didn't love it. Like I didn't think that Pacioretty. I thought he actually, in a lot of ways, he was where power plays went to die because he's so many times he'd been in the slot and just shoot it off the boards and it comes out of the zone
Mm,
and it was like rinse repeat with him. And I guess Vegas was in win now mode, so they went for it. And you never know with a lot of these picks. When we got rid of him, he was very young, and he's certainly panned out. But yeah, I definitely have looked at like what would this team look like, if they would have kept some of these players. And some of them, everyone was like down on when we traded Eric Brandstrom for Mark Stone, but that seems to have worked out pretty well.
yeah, exactly. So I guess sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Suzuki's good, but Vegas obviously just won a cup, so I don't think they're too upset. And they gave away Pacioretty for free in order to do that, which was pretty wild. And Pacioretty actually, I think, is also skating like Lehkonen. He could come back soon too over on Washington. So it'll be interesting to see how that affects things. Maybe he could, join our Dylan Strome on the power play, and well, hopefully it doesn't make the power play die like you're saying, and then that wouldn't be good. Um, I guess I'll mention a couple. Then, like my deep cuts here on Montreal would be that Josh Anderson is somehow going off, which I was not expecting this year. So I don't expect that to go on.
I
Go
did.
on.
I saw
Really?
him. I picked him up a couple times early because I expected a breakout. I thought like underlying numbers, like this guy's supposed to put up some points. He hadn't put up any, I think, and it's only a matter of time. He's in a pretty good situation, and it's not like there's a lot of competition in Montreal for offensive output.
Yeah, it was really surprising when he was like just going pointless like for the season pretty much. Like for a guy who plays like a decent number of minutes. But yeah, now he's up to 5 points in his last 4 games. So if you want to get in on some of that, he got like more than 50% of the power play time in the last game. So Josh Anderson, right him while he's hot. And then like a super deep cut. Maybe this could be someone that might have been available in your league. Is David Savard out there? An
I
older
traded him last year in the offseason for
uh
for like a court for like a bag of pucks, basically. But no, he's not available. Yeah, he's definitely somebody that's taken in our league. But again, he's not very useful in my league because it's just goals and assists.
Sure, except for the last couple games, two straight 1 goal, 1 assist games for David Savard out of nowhere. He's great for blocks. In the couple, he's good even just for that floor, but this won't happen too often for sure. But pretty wild to see David Savard. I actually just added him in another league right before the streak. It's just because I had an open spot only for defense on Thursday, and he was playing Thursday, Friday. So I figured I could get 2 games out of someone. There's no one else to stream in, and I'm happy with it now. I'll hold on to him for a little while anyway, see how long it can last. Uh, okay, so Daniel, you've mentioned before, I think at the top of the show, that you're a big fan of Jack Hughes. So this is because he's on your dynasty team, I assume.
Yes. So the way that our league works, we have a farm draft, and I tanked for a couple of years, and I got the number one pick, and it was Jack Hughes. And the way that our league works, we sign our players. Used to be 5 years. Now you can sign them from 1 to 3. Except every team gets one franchise player that you can sign for as many years as you like.
Ah,
So at 18 years old, he played his rookie season, and I signed him to a 15-year deal at a discount. So I've got Jack Hughes on my team, in perpetuity, basically. Like I'm gonna have him until his career's over. So I call him my little boy. My wife kind of makes fun of me. She's like, that's really creepy. That's weird. You call him your little boy. I'm like, it's my child. Like when you do a dynasty league, as because you're doing them, it's like, these are your kids. Like, and honestly, the cupful, I had fun with it because I essentially, anytime it was close, I drafted guys I already have. So like
mm.
Aho, Stutzel, Cousins, Riley Smith, Ricard Raquel. I went with a lot of guys that were already on my squad.
When you think about it, like I just had a kid a year ago. It is kind of like you're signing someone to a 15-year contract or something. Like I have to take care of this person for a long time. I can't get out of this contract now. And I guess but that's actually pretty impressive that you got Jack Hughes and wanted to, because the first season he didn't do that well, right? He only had 21 points or something in 60 games. Like but I guess
Well,
you
I
just
took a
were
risk. I took a risk, but so the way that our league works is when a player on your team is a free agent, that's the year that counts based on how they did that year in our league. So because he had a down year, that I'm like, ooh, now I can get him much cheaper for long term. So I decided to just, go for it and hope that it panned out. And again, even in his rookie year, if you looked at the underlying numbers, like he was creating a ton of chances and nobody was just converting. So it felt like he was destined to break out. Just I've never seen anybody skate like him. Like he's not the fastest player in the league, but nobody has edge work like him that goes side to side and weaves in and out of traffic like he does. Again, him not being a big guy, biggest concern for me is, will he stay healthy? Because, he's had a couple of big injuries in the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, so I guess what the reason I wanted to bring him up, and this is totally like just I'm saying it because I'm the host of the show and I'm supposed to. So I'll just mention that Jack Hughes is a little cold right now. He's on a cold streak. He's only got 1 point in his last 4 games. So that includes today, and there's still a period left against Detroit. So maybe he'll be able to change that. Before that, he had a hat trick against Columbus. So I guess that, but after that, he's been a little cold. I'm not
When he had that
concerned.
hat trick, by the way, I literally, and I know this isn't a betting podcast, but it was plus 375 that he would have a 3-point night. And I told my friend to bet on Jack Hughes against when he played Columbus to have a 3-point night. So he cashed in on that ticket.
Wow, plus 375. You can win a lot there. So how much did he put down?
I don't even know what he put down. It wasn't a lot. It was he lives in Toronto. He's using one of those fun little, legal sites that I don't know. It was probably like $20 or something.
Right. I actually just I'm not a big gambler myself, but I just put $25 on the Jets to win the cup. I don't know. I just they played a good game yesterday, and I was like, oh, I'll give it a shot. They were like 25 plus
I
2,500.
don't hate that. I really don't hate that. And I'll tell you what, they were my dark horse last year. And just sort of on the Vegas Golden Knights thing, they won the cup, and people don't realize how lucky they got and to win. There's so many things had to go right. Number one, they were healthy for the entire playoffs. And the first round matchup was Winnipeg. And a lot of people were picking Winnipeg, right? However, in that series, they lost Josh Morrissey. And they were missing 4 of their top 6 forwards, right? If that team wasn't so banged up, there's a chance that Vegas might not even got out of the first round.
Yeah, and what I like about Winnipeg, not that I'm like encouraging people like don't make this bet and then blame me if you lose, but like what I like about them is Kyle Connor is injured now and they're still rolling.
I have him. Darn it.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Is it hurting you especially then to see how much that top line is just cooking without him?
Yeah.
Like
Kyle Connor was way better than I would have expected. Yeah. He was one of the wingers that I took that I was like, yeah, I don't know. I guess there's nobody else. I'll just take Kyle Connor. Seems like the spot for him, and he's far exceeded my expectations. The other one, real quickly, was Adrian Kempe. I wasn't sure about this one, but I reached for him, and I could have taken Kevin Fiala, but I went with positional eligibility and him being a right wing. I looked at the right wings available, and I was like, oh my god, there's like nothing left. And I'm like looking back now. With the way things have gone, I'm pretty happy with that decision, keeping Kempe or picking Kempe over Fiala.
Yeah, Kempe's having a great season, and Kyle Connor was a great pick for sure. And but like now I have Nikolai Ehlers on my team, and I've got to be honest, I'm kind of like Connor, take your time, heal up, be ready for the playoffs, help me win my bet. But Ehlers is really doing well now that he's on the top line and top power play. Finally, 10 points in the last 5 games for Ehlers. That line with Velarde also and Scheifele looking really good right now. Where was I going with this? Okay, we were talking about the Devils. Okay, so Jack Hughes is on a cold streak. Whatever. Though I should mention he's not the only Devil on a cold streak, right? Like I don't even need to waste time talking about is Jack Hughes going to bounce back. He's a superstar. He'll be fine. But like Tyler Toffoli has been cold also, and for a lot longer, even before Jack Hughes went cold. Like there's that game against Columbus that Jack Hughes had a hat trick. So Toffoli had a goal and an assist. Aside from that, he's had no points in his previous 11 games, like aside for that one game. So Toffoli has just totally gone cold. And before that, he was like a point per game guy. Now all out of nowhere, and he's playing with Hughes and on the top power play. So I don't really know how to explain. This would be where I throw to Brian to I don't know, try to explain what's going on, like bad on ice shooting percentage. I don't know what it is. But
a lot of weird things happening in New Jersey, and they have been shuffling. And you mentioned Foley and also Timo Meyer. He hasn't exactly been great. And I think I don't know that it necessarily is all that relevant, but like Dougie Hamilton being out, sort of changes things a little bit in terms of the defense being able to get the puck to the forwards and just changes the dynamic of the offense because Dougie Hamilton played a lot of minutes. I don't know if that's directly related or not, but I would expect, I think Lindy Ruff's job is like he's on the chopping block potentially because New Jersey's expected to be a lot better than they have been so far this season. So if that changes, who knows what happens. But again, I think all of New Jersey is going to be just fine. There's too many weapons on that team.
Yeah, now might be a good time to just try to buy some of these guys, or maybe some will get dropped. Like in a shallower league, I could see Toffoli dropped. In even a maybe a little bit of a deeper league, you could see Luke Hughes potentially getting dropped. He's pointless in his last 7 games, but he's still quarterback in the top power play. The word is that Hamilton is going to be out basically for the rest of the regular season, maybe save for a couple games before the playoffs. So yeah, you would think, I don't know, since you've been investing in Jack Hughes for so long, did you also have an eye on like getting the rest of his family? Is Luke
Well, I
Hughes
know
someone
I
that
couldn't
you?
have gotten, I could have got Quinn years ago. I think Quinn was drafted the same year. I took like Kokanyemi and Zadina, I think it was,
Damn.
which didn't pan out. But Luke was on my radar. I could have gotten Luke. But then I thought it might be a little bit of overkill. With our league and, somewhat true with a couple, don't necessarily want to overload my top guys all on the same team. You want a little bit of you want to sort of spread out the wealth, if you will. But if Luke Hughes was available in anybody's league right now and they're not picking him up, that's a huge mistake. Like with Dougie Hamilton out, that clears the way for him to be the number one guy. And he obviously has the chemistry with his brother Jack. So this is a great opportunity for Luke Hughes. And if he's available in any league, he should be picked up immediately.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I think this break will maybe do the Devils some good. Like these are really talented players that should be getting points. And like Luke Hughes is a great player, and yeah, he's a rookie, but like he's in such a great spot right now that I just can't imagine how unless he loses the top power play, like unless Simon Nemec comes out and like takes the top power play from him, like I can't imagine he's gonna be pointless for the next 7 games. Randomly, while all these bigger names are cold on New Jersey, here's my next deep cut a la Josh Anderson or Alex Kerfoot or whatever. There's a guy named Michael McLeod who has 4 points in his last 4 games. So I don't think that's going to keep up. But he's a former 12th overall pick in 2016. He was probably
Yeah.
on your radar at one point.
I had McLeod on my team last year. It was a pickup, and the year before, sort of in and out. Not a guy that I ever expect to be something. He's like a bottom six player. He's never going to be better than that. Sort of defense first. So like whenever you see something like this, you wonder like, okay, so did he just like it's like for those that gamble, like if you play roulette and it comes black like 4 times in a row, should you bet on black or should you should bet on red because it's unlikely to continue? And I would with McLeod, I'd bet on red. Like I don't see him like continuing to put up points. I think you just missed the boat, if you didn't have him for the stretch. And he's not a guy that I would add. Even in like deep leagues, I don't think he makes many lineups unless it was a week where New Jersey's played 3 late days or something like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. The line for today, so they're rolling with Hughes, Bratt, and Toffoli, and then Meyer is with McLeod and Dawson Mercer. So McLeod is playing with Timo Meyer, and Timo Meyer actually has a goal today. It was unassisted. Kind of rude. You'd think that's the whole point is to play with Timo Meyer and get an assist on his goals. But maybe lately it's like Timo Meyer is lucky to be playing with Michael McLeod with how things have been going lately. But who knows? Maybe now Meyer's going to break out of the slump here with his goal today. Okay, totally non-hockey related question. I had 2 different patrons when I said you were coming on the show wanted me to ask you about the Jeff Platt curse. Have you learned to stay away from Jeff Platt yet? Was a question from Terry that I had to throw at you.
So in Vegas for years, there used to be like in the 70s, this idea that certain people were called coolers. Like if somebody was doing really well at the blackjack table, the casino manager would be like, send in Bob, and Bob would go in there and then the guy would start losing. Well, Jeff Platt has sort of been that in poker where, during the World Series of Poker main event, anytime he interviewed somebody, like they would be eliminated immediately after the interview. So he got this Grim Reaper reputation. I tried to just walk into the eye of the storm and say, you know what? I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of the voodoo. And I was like, Jeff, I'm going to hang out with you. And I did so. And I busted like 2 minutes later. So maybe he really is a cooler. I don't know. I don't know how much I believe in the heebie-jeebies and stuff. And I try to avoid it. But man, it's his record is like his percentage is pretty high right now. So I would stay away just in case.
So are you going to now from now on if he comes to you to try to get an interview?
I have to find a way to get past that. So no, I'm not going to avoid him. I'm going to try to just pretend it, it's so I'm trying to reverse. Maybe now he's lucky. That's what I'm going to go. He's a lucky guy.
Well, hey, and then we had a question from Kevin. I wonder who's the fantasy hockey equivalent of the Jeff Platt curse? Is there a player? I don't know. I was trying to think of even what that question means. Like maybe there's a player that if you have him on your team, then like you're gonna lose. I'm not really sure how that would work. But can you think of any analogies there?
Well, there was 2. I mean, I don't know why, but like for me, when I made 2 big free agent splashes, one was Eric Karlsson few years ago before his 100-point season, and he was awful. And the other was John Karlsson, who I picked up, and then he got hurt immediately after that. So yeah, both those players, as soon as I grabbed them, terrible. Then when I don't have them, they just pile the pucks in. I don't know.
Okay, so those are the guys to potentially stay away from. Uh, Kevin was saying maybe that, like, there's some sort of curse. Maybe you put a curse on yourself. This was his suggestion. Like, let's say you have some open IR spots. So then you decide, like, okay, I have a couple extra moves left this week. Let me grab some guys who are injured to just fill the spots. Since there's free moves, I could put them in. Then it'll happen when they're healthy. He thinks that maybe you're cursing yourself, and then you're jinxing your team to now get injured. It's like, oh, you thought you were in such a great spot that you had these open IR spots. Well, now you're gonna get like your top player injured. So I don't know if that happened to you when Kyle Connor got hurt. I don't, or maybe did Kyle Connor get hurt after you talked to Jeff Platt? Did he
Oh,
potentially curse your poker game and your couple team?
I'm trying to think. The timeline was actually pretty close. I think it might have been right around then. It was how long has Connor been out? Like 2 weeks now, something like
Something
that.
like that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the Jeff Platt. I did talk to Jeff Platt, and then while I was in Bahamas, I think Kyle Connor went down.
So you actually screwed a lot of people by talking to Jeff Platt that time. A lot of people have lost Kyle Connor from their team because you had to do this
Yeah,
interview.
all my fault.
Okay, so okay, so sorry, let me just oh shit. Like, so yeah, I could end it or I could keep going. Like, I guess this has been fun. Like, I have more players I could talk about, but maybe it's a good point. Like, how are you feeling? Do you want to talk? Maybe I'll do like a couple more players and then we'll
Sure.
wrap it. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, all right, I want to throw a couple more players. Honestly, Daniel, I'm having a great time. Like, I could talk to you all night, but probably I should respect your time a little bit coming on the show. But okay, a couple more cold streaks. I'd be curious to get your takes on. Number one, this is a guy we've talked about a bit on the podcast, but at this point, it's just so ridiculous. Jonathan Huberdeau, like, how has Jonathan Huberdeau gotten so bad? Like, he is now on a 10-game pointless streak. Like, this is a guy getting paid what 11 million a year for the next 7 years after this one. I don't know. You seem to have called a lot of things. Like, did you see this coming at all? Like, how bad Jonathan Huberdeau was going to be, or do you have any reason for hope that you're seeing? You could get him. You could probably get him for a bag of pucks. Just like who did you say you traded away for a bag of? Anyways, whatever. Yeah,
David
like
Savard. Yeah.
yeah, David Savard. Yeah, yeah. You could probably get a similar deal for Huberdeau right now.
So Huberdeau, quick funny story. Earlier last year, I did a charity event for the Calgary Flames, and I went there and I played with Uyghur and Zadorov and Huberdeau and all the players. And I ended up getting heads up with Jonathan Huberdeau, and
Oh
we
wow.
played heads up, and I ended up beating him. And he's like an incredibly great guy. I sensed when I was there in Calgary that there was just gloom and doom. Daryl Sutter, like it was very, very difficult for those players to play at their best, when things were just not going well. And I just feel like he hasn't snapped out of that yet, hasn't gotten accustomed to it. I do think though that his numbers in Florida were super, like we're just inflated. Like I don't think was ever supposed to be like a 110-point player. He was just in a really good situation. And now in Calgary, he doesn't have the same supporting cast that he did when he was in Florida. So do I think he's this like no pointless in 10 type guy? No, I think he's going to be, you know, 65, 70-point guy. Like that's just what he is now. So big number for Calgary to swallow in terms of how much they paid, for him. And I thought it was a mistake at the time because I think even when they traded him, his underlying numbers suggested that he wasn't the driver in a lot of those situations. So yeah, I think what you're seeing now is not like who he is, but I don't think he's, the guy he was in Florida either.
Right. Yeah. So maybe at this point, like, don't trade for Huberdeau for sure, but maybe we're getting to a point where he's going to get dropped. He's probably been dropped in a lot of leagues. I don't know. I might be tempted to take a shot, but also I don't know. He's not even like on the. Let me see. Like lately in Calgary, he had a 6-shot game in that in this 10th pointless game. Huberdeau that hasn't even been on the top power play. He can't beat out Connor Zary or Igor Sharangovich to get on the top unit with a Lindholm Kadri and Rasmus Anderson. So that just goes to show that things aren't very good for Huberdeau. Maybe at some point he turns it around. They're gonna probably keep giving him shots like with this
You're
contract, you
paying
would
him
think.
like 11 million a year or something ridiculous like that for the next 6, 7 years. So
Yeah.
you got to find a way to figure it out.
And then another guy, like a superstar for forever that's all of a sudden gone cold, but also just not having a good year overall. I think it's about time we have to have the conversation about Chris Letang. You brought up Eric Karlsson, who definitely also hasn't been as exciting as we hoped he would be, but he's getting points here and there. But yeah, we haven't really talked about Letang on the podcast. He had an assist today in this game versus Ottawa, so that's something. But before that, he was pointless in four, and overall now we're at 15 points in 32 games, kind of similar numbers to Pietrangelo, actually, in terms like a 38-ish point pace. Are you expecting like Letang to turn this around, or is this just like kind of like what you said about Pietrangelo? This is just the new life for him. Like he's not on the top power play. Like maybe he's just like a 45 point guy, and we just have to come to accept it, or maybe now's a great time to buy him.
Like, so honestly, in our league, a 40-point defenseman is like, wow, that's amazing. Like, that's really, really good. So this, frankly, is what I expected from Letang going into the season. When you add Eric Karlsson, I don't know that the experiment has worked, if you will, in having both of them because they played a similar role and Letang's sort of taken a back seat. So there was a lot of question in terms of how much it would damage Letang. And frankly, I think him putting up 15 points in 32 games is like, as good. That's what I expected him to do that. I didn't expect him to do much better than that. So this is just what he's going to produce. I think, if he does this the rest of the way, I think you should be happy with it. I don't think you should expect him to all of a sudden, do much better than that because again, he is now playing second fiddle to Eric Karlsson, and the second power play in Pittsburgh isn't all that scary.
Yeah, and they don't get much minutes. So I think if what you're saying is true, then people have to start considering dropping Letang in a league like a couple. Obviously, in your league, a 40-point defenseman is incredible. So sure, hold him. But in a couple, you can get like a, Noah Hannafin types like out of free agency. And it sounds like maybe that could be what Letang is looking like now. Like, good number of even strength minutes, but not a ton of power play. Okay. I want to end on this. So we all know Alex Ovechkin is having a rough season in terms of goals. He did score a goal in his last game, so he's up to 6 now. We'll see how it goes today in this game versus Tampa. It might be over actually by the time we're talking about it, but nothing yet. Ovechkin is like what 60 goals back of Gretzky's record. Do you have a take right now? Do you think Ovechkin's going to turn it around and get that goal record, or do you think he might be falling short?
Well, I think going into the season, everyone just saw it as a foregone conclusion because we hadn't seen any drop off from Ovechkin at any point. And, the one year he had like 39 or something. People were like, oh, this is in. And then he scored like, 55 or something the next year, something along those lines. It's this stretch that he's going through now. Like the real question is ultimately going to be is like, is he hurt? And we don't know about it. Is this new Ovechkin? Is he going to bounce back? I think the team is much slower than it used to be. And I also think offensively, especially on the power play, like for so many years, like everyone knows the Ovechkin spot and they still couldn't stop it. And now it appears like, maybe they have. So I still think that I think he cares enough that he's going to stick around. But if he continues at this pace for the rest of the season this year, then no. Like if he scores less than 20 this year, then I don't think he's going to get there. But if he, somehow ends up, with 25 to 28 goals, then I think he will. But, it doesn't look like he's going to get there right now. He's on pace for something like 17, 16, something like that.
Yeah, no, he'll have to turn it around. He took 7 shots in that last game and 5 before. Like, he's taking a lot of shots, so hopefully more start going in and he could approach it. Okay, what do you think the Vegas odds would be right now? A bet of like when Austin Matthews' career is over, is he going to have more or fewer goals than Alex Ovechkin did in his career? Like, 'cause at this point, it's kind of like the way Matthews is going, and maybe this is a stupid question, but like Matthews now has 28 goals on the season after he's scored now. What is this? 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, like 8 goals in his last 6 games. Like Matthews is just scoring like 1 or 2 goals every single game. You look at his career trajectory, like 325 goals now in only 510 games. He's only 26 years old. Like everyone's talking about Ovechkin. I wonder if but obviously the big thing with Ovi is like he never got hurt, and Matthews has been hurt a lot, and maybe he'll continue to get hurt, and that would be a thing. But yeah, I'm curious to know, would it be like 10-1 odds that Ovechkin is going to end his career with more goals than Matthews when he ends his career? Where do you think that would be?
I would happily take 10-1 on Matthews right now that, he surpasses Ovechkin by the time it's all said and done. The issue is with hockey players is what happens to them when they hit the early 30s. And in a lot of plays, a lot of players like right around that age, they just, like look at Gretzky. Gretzky went from being a, whatever, 50 goal guy to just no longer being able to do that, over a pretty short period of time. But if Matthews can stay healthy, he has he's a student of the game in terms of his shot, and he finds different ways to score and, angle the puck when he makes it very difficult for goalies to stop. His high shooting percentage, I don't expect that to change. So I would say that it's probably closer to like 4-1, that he surpasses Ovechkin.
Okay, that would be a fun bet to make. I wonder if it's going to be like, remember the whole thing in baseball where it was like, what was his name? Roger Maris had the most home runs, and then there
Mhm.
was the race of like Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa. But then like McGuire, whatever, he broke the record for most home runs in a season. And but then like a year later, or maybe a couple years later, Barry Bonds came in. This is like back when I used to follow baseball, but like I wonder if it'll be like that. Like maybe Ovi will like in like 3-4 years from now edge out Gretzky just for like for him to hold the record for a few years, and then like maybe Matthews can pass him, and it'll just be a short-term thing. I that's just something that came to my head. I wonder if that'll happen. Maybe
Yeah.
it's all fan fiction.
I think also too, like what really matters, and you're seeing it with Ovechkin now, aside from age, is like the supporting cast and the team around him. Like how good is Washington going to be this
Yeah.
year, next year, the year after? Like with the Leafs, the Leafs obviously it's hockey town. They're going to want to be good. Is he going to be a guy that stays there? Is Marner and Nylander and Tavares going to be guys that he can bounce the puck off, or if they get weaker, then his goal output gets weaker. And I don't see like a path right now where like I don't expect in 2-3 years from now the Toronto Maple Leafs to be better than they are now. So that could be a knock against his chances.
Yeah, I wonder if Ovi is second guessing his choice to like re-sign with Washington like a couple years ago. Like he was going to be a UFA. He could have gone anywhere, but
Yeah. Although Washington hasn't been as bad as it looked like they were going to be. I think in the first 10 games of the seasons, it looked like they might just be like a real bottom feeder. But they've turned things around, and they're just older and slower, and I don't know that helps give him as many opportunities as he's going to need to pass Gretzky for the all-time lead.
yeah. All right. Well, Daniel, okay, this has been amazing. Thanks so much again for coming on. Do you want to tell people what you'd like them to check out? Like anything you want to plug? I know you have a lot going on all the time, but yeah, thanks again. Yeah, please throw out all the places that people should be checking out your work.
Well, I'm on X, Twitter, whatever the heck we call it now. I'm Real Kid Poker there. But there's one show that I think you should all take a chance and look at if you haven't watched poker in a while. It's the greatest poker show I've ever been involved with. It's called Game of Gold, and you can find it for free on YouTube on GG Poker's YouTube channel. And it's called Game of Gold. It sort of combines reality TV with poker in a way that's never been done before, and it was a blast. So I won't spoil who won. I also did a podcast on my channel affiliated with it, but it's really entertaining. So I would say check out Game of Gold, totally free on YouTube.
All right. I'll make sure to link to that in the show notes, along with your Twitter and whatever. So yeah, great stuff. Good luck for the rest of the season in your cupful division. And I didn't even ask you, how are you doing in your dynasty league this year? Are you looking good?
Well, the Dynasty League, I'm crushing. Like I have the best record in the league. I have the best overall score. I have the best goaltending. I
Nice.
have like third best defense, third best forwards so far. So it's bodes like it's looking really, really good there. The cupful, my first year in there, I'm gonna win this week. I'll be 5-6. I did have a hot streak where I had the high score of the week 3 weeks in a row, but it's been a challenge. Like again, I think picking 13th was tough, and Tage
Mhm.
Thompson wasn't the guy. He wasn't the like you see some teams and they just have that anvil, and I'm like, nah, Tage really isn't that. Buffalo's been blah, and so yeah, but I still have hopes, and again, there's some good competitive teams in the cupful, and I'm still hopeful that we're going to make the playoffs and make a run.
Yeah, we have that in common. I'm going to be 5-6 after this week as well. Going into this week, I had the second most points in my division in terms of total points, but I've had some rough head-to-head luck. I'm against another really strong team this week. But I think you and I are going to turn things around. We still have a lot of season left. There's still 10, 12 couple matchups to go.
Now that
So
I don't have to waste, hopefully, fingers crossed, any more many more things on like goalies,
mm,
like if Kucherov and Talbot can just chill. I love my defense. I picked up McAvoy and Dobson, and my biggest pickup was Philip Hronek, which I picked up on waivers, and he's
amazing.
been fantastic. So I feel good there, and then
You can
just need
stream your
Page to
forwards.
pull his weight, and maybe Kyle Connor comes back, and we're good to go.
Okay, well, good luck. I'll definitely be watching or commenting on it on the show. I'll check back in. But yeah, thanks again so much for coming. I think people are really going to love this show. Yeah, have a great holiday. And yeah, hope to talk to you again soon.
All right, it was a pleasure.
Sweet. Okay. Well, yeah, it was really fun. Thanks again.
Oh, you're welcome, man. I listen to the show. I'm a fan.
That's incredible. Like I literally, like I'm not even joking. Like I remember watching Robin Amber against the odds.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
being like, look at this guy now. Like, if I would have told myself then that I'd be like, doing a podcast with you, it would be incredible. But all right. So yeah, have a great rest of your night. Yeah, I'll let you know when the show's posted.
Sounds good.
All right.
Have a
See
good
ya.
one.
Thanks
Bye.
everyone for watching. Bye. How cool was that? Oh my God. Okay. See you, everybody.